What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Suncoast On Point, the only news given to you with no slants needed. I'm your host. There's so much to talk about. Do we have a new boogeyman in the room? Is Project 2025 going to be the end of democracy as we know it? Well, we will certainly find out. We'll go over the popular talking points, and we will see just how wrong or right people are. But first, before we get to this point, we had an amazing presidential debate between current President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump. It went literally from points in policy to golf swings. Not even joking. So afterwards, CNN, which I got to give credit where credit's due, CNN actually did a very good job moderating this debate. They didn't do what I personally thought that they were going to do. I thought they were going to shut Trump down at every possible angle that they could, and they just asked the questions and they let him stop. They let him talk. They let him talk themselves into a hole. We can worry about the fact checking later. That's exactly what happened. I would have liked to have seen fact checking in real time. I would have also liked for certain points to be expanded upon. If you're going to be the moderator of a debate, let them talk themselves into a corner, and that's either side. I don't care. There's been a lot of clips going on. There's been a lot of clips going around. We can have a legitimate discussion about this now, and I feel confident, and it's a good thing. So we're going to start with the fact-checking from Donald Trump. CNN, immediately after the debate, they fact-checked both Trump and Biden, and this is what they came up with. This is clip one.
He spoke of food prices quadrupling under Biden. That's a wild exaggeration, though they are up. He said Biden made up the idea he called dead service members suckers and losers. No, the Atlantic magazine reported that, and then former Trump Chief of Staff John Kelly corroborated it.
The problem with the suckers and losers comment is because, yes, it was, but there's so much of the muddying of the water when it comes to the suckers and losers comment that I don't even see how that could be taken as credible. Again, this would have been the perfect time for CNN to fact check this because, yeah, John Kelly has come out, but the other person remained, no, we're not going to really speak on it, has not spoke on it to this day. Let's carry on.
He said the U.S. currently has the biggest budget deficit ever. No, that happened under Trump in 2020. He said the U.S. currently has a record trade deficit with China. That also happened under Trump in 2018.
They would be 100% correct, right, wrong, or indifferent. That is correct. We continue.
Said the U.S. was paying 100% of NATO before he came along. The U.S. made up about 71% of NATO defense spending, not 100. He said he, not Biden, is the one who lowered insulin prices in Medicare. He did it for some seniors, but Biden did it for far more. He said,
see, now that deserves some context because we've heard that forever. We have heard that no, Trump didn't do anything for insulin. Well, yes, he did. And this actually proves it, that this is a left-leaning news outlet. I'm very skeptical about mainstream media, but when you have things coming from your own side of the aisle whose exact job is to prop up each other and to prop up their guy, because that's what their job is to prop up their guy, and they can't even do that well, that definitely leaves a lot to be desired. But they were actually extremely honest about it, and they did do a fact check of President Biden.
I'll give you some of them. He said he's the only president in a while who didn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world. Troops have, of course, died on his watch. He said he's put in a $15 per shot cap on insulin and Medicare. It's a $35 a month cap. He said it's a $200 cap on overall drug spending in Medicare. It's $2,000 a year. He said the border now has fewer crossings than when Trump was in office. That's generally not true. He said, or at least strongly suggested, unemployment was at 15% when he took office. It was actually 6.4. He said Trump wants to get rid of Social Security. Trump doesn't. He said billionaires pay 8.2% in taxes. It's much higher. He said Trump told Americans to inject bleach amid COVID. We know Trump made foolish comments about scientists studying disinfectant injection, but didn't frame it as advice to people. And Biden said the Border Patrol endorsed him. No, its union supported the border bill he'd supported, never endorsed him himself.
These are all very important things because we have been told nonstop. We are still getting told to this very day that everything that Donald Trump says is wrong and it is a lie, a constant liar, consistently lying. I will forever say this. If you're going to have a real discussion about politicians who lie, then here's a great idea. Let's start with holding everybody accountable. Let's put everybody on the same page. Let's put everybody into that market. Say, okay, fine. If Trump lied, I agree. Perfect. Bad. Biden lied. That is also equally as bad. But the shit show continues. I put these particular clips together because it coincides with Project 2025. We will break out our debate bingo card because they did talk about January 6th, as I knew they would.
What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes ever. We had the lowest regulations ever. On January 6th, we were respected all over the world. All over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people.
Wow. Speaking from a strategic standpoint, Donald Trump gave the most accurate answer you could possibly give in asked a situational question like this. He might as well have said, look, Jake, we can disagree on what January 6th was, but this is what else was going on January 6th. That's exactly what he did. Bam, hit it out of the park. Excellent, excellent rebuttal by Trump. Biden could not get his feet moving in the proper direction. Some people say he was exhausted from international travels because he traveled 12 days beforehand, and then he went to Camp David and prepped and did all of these other things. Perfect, fine, I understand. But to sit here and still getting us to believe that President Biden has all of his faculties, just admit it. You'd vote for a tree if it was going against Donald Trump, which leads me to believe one simple yet correct thing. And that is, you don't care who's running. You just don't want to see Trump in that position. You'd vote for anybody other than President or former President Donald Trump. I get it. Trust me, I do get it. But what if they're both senile? All right? Follow me on that. What if they're both cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs? They're both batshit crazy. They both just don't know what the hell's going on and they're out of touch. How about in 2028, we say, okay, we're done. You got to be older than 35, but you can't be older than 60. That should be a fair assessment. The big takeaway on this is things like the abortion discussion that President Trump, which we'll get to that in a minute, but the situation of Medicaid came up. And this is where it really started to go off the rails, and Trump proceeded to slam the shit out of him. Like, put him on his back.
Strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare.
I'm sorry, but this is exactly what we were wanting. We had serious questions because there was no live audience. Therefore, we all know Trump works well in front of a live audience. He's also very good when it comes to teleprompter and getting the crowd reaction and getting the crowd behind him. He didn't have that. The deck was very much stacked against him, but excellent response, funny response, actually. It's amazing because then they moved on to things like immigration, and I don't know what the hell the current president was talking about in his defense of immigration.
Women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in, they talk about that. But here's the deal: there's a lot of young women are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters.
Sisters? What? Is President Biden standing up for all the sexual improprieties caused by sisters? What in the hell is he talking about? An excellent point that Donald Trump made later on in the debate is, he said, and I quote, "If you were doing as great a job as you think you were doing, I wouldn't be here." He does have a point. But the massacre continues, and this is what nobody's reporting on. Nobody's talking about this because that undercuts the narrative. That undercuts the point that they're trying to push out to people. They want you to believe that Donald Trump wants to do away with reproductive rights, that wants to give out zero exceptions and all this other nonsense. And it's just simply not true. And now we have video proof. And we're going to see it. But first, he talks about the Supreme Court and the abortion pill.
As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion pill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it.
Boom! Boom goes the dynamite. But it doesn't stop there. You know, everybody was saying that Trump has zero compassion for exceptions or the exemptions of abortion. Well, that's not true either.
Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important.
Democrats, how do you fight that? That's been one of your big talking points. That's been a big sticking talking point for the last 4 years, for the last umpteen years that this man has been in the political scene. Oh, well, he's against women's rights. He's against this. There were other nonsensical things like, we could do a 5-hour show just on the nonsense that happened in this debate, but we're not going to. It was brought up about things like Charlottesville, if you all will remember and have a memory longer or bigger than 6 years. That was what caused President Biden to get into the race. He said it point blank, end of quote. I looked at the hell and havoc that happened at Charlottesville, and that compelled me to get into the race. Well, now fast forward to 2024. He's still very much against Charlottesville, but he doesn't have too much to say about the radical Hamas protests that's calling for the unaliving of the Jewish community. How does that work? How the heck are you only upset at Charlottesville, but you're not willing to condemn anything else? Come on. Like, let's be fair, shall we? Like, can we not be fair? If you have a sticking point, my suggestion is always going to be get your sticking point and stick to it. Don't sit here and say that one is bad and the other one isn't. Biden missed a real opportunity with that. A real opportunity. And this is me being completely down the middle. He was right for condemning Charlottesville again. He was good for bringing that back up to the forefront in case people have forgot about it. That is an excellent debate tactic. He should have immediately said, hey, we condemn Charlottesville, the Nazis, and this, that, and the third, bad people. We also condemn the people calling for the end of the Jewish population in Israel. Bam, that would have shot every argument down, Republicans would not have had a leg to stand on. This is my gripe with the Democratic Party, is they start off good, so they start off straight and they go that way. If you can't get your damn facts and your figures and your messaging consistent, nobody will take you seriously. So while you have yahoos like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez sitting here doing the whole intifada chant, that's bad. When you have all of these pro-Palestine protests and they're chanting from the river to the sea, that is an anti-Semitic trope. Why can't you call that out? Why can't anybody call that out? Oh, well, they don't really mean that. Yes, they do. If I'm to believe, because I hear people all the time, believe Donald Trump when he speaks because he's showing you who he is. So I'm supposed to believe him, but I'm not supposed to believe people like Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Jamal Bowman. I'm not supposed to believe them and take them at their word. Oh, because they don't mean it like that. Jamal Bowman suffered a serious loss in his own damn district. Goodbye. So long. Ta-ta for now. And you don't want me to take Joe Biden seriously. Why? Can't I just take everybody at their word? And this is how it is? Why can't we do that? Is it so impossible to do that? It has to be. I don't understand. Make this make sense to me. I'm happy to look at both sides and say, okay, one of these people is jacked up. One of these people don't get it. And as the days go by, we don't know who gets it and who doesn't. No matter. We are now moving on to everybody's new boogeyman. That's what I call this. Project 2025 is the new boogeyman of this election. It is no longer about democracy. It's about Project 2025. Project 2025 is bad. It ruins this, and it ruins all of that. So we're going to take a look at it. I have it right here. I have it in front of me. I have 900 pages in front of me. We're not going to read it. Why? Because, well, that would take forever. And that would really run a hell of a lot longer than my show is. And IC wouldn't like that very much. So what's the big thing that everybody's talking about in Project 2025? They're talking about doing away with the reproductive rights. There have been many videos about this, talking about how Project 2025 is going to get rid of things like contraception and the abortion pill, and they're going to get rid of all of these wonderful things. You just heard video from Donald Trump on national television. You just heard him say the Supreme Court just approved the abortion pill. He wasn't going to overturn it. How does that align with Project 2025? You're going to have to make that make sense to me. But people can't. Because what they're going to do is they're going to say, oh, well, he's lying. He's lying. He's always a liar. That doesn't pan out anymore. Sorry. And it doesn't pan out because, again, if we're going to call one person a liar, then we have to be willing to call out the same side we have to be willing to call out the opposite side when lies happen. A couple of things to definitely take note of when it comes to Project 2025. This is not endorsed by a single candidate, not one. But of course, that narrative changed very quickly. Well, it was made up by former Trump staffers. And if I'm to speak frankly, Donald Trump would never go for Project 2025. And I say this with the utmost respect. Why? Because Donald Trump is too damn selfish to go along with somebody else's plan. There you go. I said it. Donald Trump would never give somebody the grace to say they came up with a better plan than him. And the fact that he absolutely said, hey, there's a lot of wild ideas. And there are a lot of wild ideas in Project 2025. But we're just going to hit the key points because that's what everybody's griping about. That's what everybody's complaining about. There have been all sorts of accusations. There's been accusations that single mothers will have their children taken from them. That's not true. If anything, there is a list of resources to help single mothers. Of course, they're going to try to dissuade people from marrying the government. They want to limit the federal government. I'm old enough to remember when that was a really good thing. I don't want the government in my business. Personally, I don't think the government should be in business. They should stay out of all business, including the business of marriage. But that's just me. The federal government will not hold their own accountable, but you want me to put my trust and faith in people who go into office broke and come out of office rich. That's going to be a tough one to swallow. They would like to do away with the Department of Education. Bravo! Please say it again for the people in the back. We talked about this on Just Another Convo. The Department of Education allocates funds based on schools' test scores. Why? If that's all they care about, then just say it and say it with your full chest. But in Project 2025, they want to do away with the Department of Education because they don't care about children making it beyond high school. They don't want to equip these children with the tools they will need to succeed. That's always how it has been. When you go to any school board, especially here in Sarasota, if you don't know, I will certainly tell you. They always say the same shit. We're number one, that we are A+ in testing. We have the best, we have the highest test percentages, Who cares? All those test scores don't mean anything. They certainly are not going to help you or help your children thrive in life. If they can't balance their their checkbook, us assuming people still write checks. If they can't do their taxes, if they don't understand how online banking works, if they don't understand that they can take a little bit of the money that they've worked hard for and they can put it in things like annuities and equity stocks and things of that nature, then what are they learning? They're learning reading, writing, and arithmetic. That's what my tax dollars pay the teachers to do. They do not teach them, or they shouldn't be paying them, so teachers can teach their views and ideas about personal stuff that doesn't have anything to do with the classroom. I don't have a problem if you want to teach history. Let's teach it all. Let's get everything out there. But you won't have that because that's going to undercut the narrative. So when people are being taught things about the indigenous people who were here first, allegedly, even though Leif Erikson was here, we don't need to talk about that. Then they only want to talk about the Trail of Tears, for example. They don't want to talk about things like the Battle of the Black Hills, where one tribe fought, ended the life, and took the land from another tribe. They don't want to talk about that. No. That's not allowed because that undercuts the narrative. So the Department of Education, I think, bye-bye. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with limited reach of the federal government because that's how it should be. The federal government and people at the Supreme Court and all of those people, their job is to enforce the laws that are on the books. Their job is not to make laws. Trump said it himself. A lot of these things, they want to go back to states' rights. Why shouldn't I have a say-so? Why shouldn't my vote count and matter when it comes to things directly involving me? If your thing is veterans assistant, or veterans assistance, fine. A lot of the stuff in Project 2025 is whack. Whack as shit. But not all of it. You have to be careful of who you listen to because their words matter. The words that they choose to use and get you to react out of fear, because that's what it is. They're reacting to you, and they're doing it in a way that is going to stifle further conversation. And you can already see it. Because we see it on social media right now. You have friendships ending because of political differences. That's insane to me. For the longest time, there's been an unspoken rule when you go to any bar in America. Two things you don't talk about. You don't talk about religion and you don't talk about politics. This is why. And it's playing out in real time in front of everyone. The reason why you don't talk about it is because nonsense happens. But back to Project 2025, this is a suggestion piece. The man who came up with this said he offered it to the Biden administration, and they said, no, thank you. The Heritage Foundation has had this sort of plan, this wish list. That's exactly what it is it's a wish list. They've been around since the 80s, the early 80s, actually like 79 to be exact. That was like before I was born. Before a lot of you watching this were born. So if they still cannot get Project 2025 in its many reincarnations of it, or iterations of it, sorry, then they're not doing a very good job. And if the only thing people have to sit here and lean their hat on is Roe v. Wade and reproductive rights, that doesn't hold up well. Why? Because the new poll states that most people, most Americans believe in some sort of restriction for it. Some sort of restriction for abortion. No, you're not going to wrote me off with that nonsense. I'm not going to say what it is. But it's pretty damn obvious what it is. If we can't have a real discussion about these things, and if things like, for example, that promise number 3, defend our nation's sovereignty, borders, and bounties against global threats. If we can't be on that same page, we've got a huge problem. But when you listen to a lot of Democrats, it's hard to know which one to take seriously because they'll say there's nothing wrong with the border and that Republicans are making this up. And then 5 minutes later, they'll go do a presser in their own city, in their own state, and say, hey, we can't house all of these immigrants. Shout out to Eric Adams. But who knows, right? I do know one thing. It's going to get worse before it gets better. On Friday, Donald Trump is supposed to go in front of a judge for sentencing for that New York City misdemeanor trial. That has been pushed back to the 24th. So it does look like Donald Trump will make the Republican National Convention. I'll be very interested to see how that goes. I'll be even more interested to see how the DNC goes. Because the Democratic National Convention, which is being held in Chicago, they are not too happy with the president. Because they don't think he's being harsh enough on topics like Israel. Who the hell are we to say if a president's being too harsh or too not harsh? He was elected, right? He won the popular vote, right? Therefore, we're trusting him to have our best interest. But again, nobody wants to talk about that. Because people only believe in politicians when it coincides and it cross-references and it cosigns what they are about. And we see this day in and day out. It's kind of shit. I'm just saying. But there's a lot more to go over in Project 2025. Hell, we may even do a show next week. We'll call this Project 2025 Part 2. And we'll get into the real things, the goods, the bads, the uglies, and everything in between. We will dive into it. We will get people to come and talk about this. We try not to do a long show when it comes to the news because the news should be impactful yet informative. We don't get paid by the hour around here. All right, we just don't. Sorry. So, until next week, I'm your boy, Mr. J to the C. And we'll see everybody here next week at the same place and time, Tuesday night, 7:30, where we'll do Project 2025 2.0, and we'll continue to talk about this and what it could mean. And we will see just how bad this piece of nonsense is. All right? Everybody be good to yourselves and each other.